多くの人が訪れた大阪・関西万博。各国のパビリオンが伝えたいメッセージがさまざまな形で表現されていました。ユーカリの森や星空を体感させる演出で心をつかんだオーストラリア。さらに観客を虜にしたのは巨大なスクリーンに映し出された展示。オーストラリアの雄大な大自然を大迫力で体感するものは好評でした。アメリカも宇宙大国らしく、これまでの実績や最先端技術をエンターテイメント性あふれる展示で観客を魅了しました。シャトルの打ち上げに登場した気分を味わえる没入感満載の体験です。
Tomoko, snow or out of the rain. So Canada's theme is regeneration, and so basically one of the most potent images of regeneration in the world, I would say, is the springtime, because that's a time of regrowth. And so our pavilion is actually based on that springtime imagery. So what you're seeing outside is one of our rivers, the Mackenzie River in Canada. And so in the springtime, when that river thaws, all the ice breaks up and starts to flow down, collects, sometimes smashes together and creates these jagged images, or jagged forms. And so the pavilion itself is based on that image, that shape of those jagged forms. So those are called ice stamps. And so we actually have the theme of ice and water throughout the entire pavilion, because Canada, about 9% of the surface of Canada is actually covered with fresh water. So you're able to travel almost all the way across the country via waterways. So within our pavilion as well, you'll see that we'll have some waterways, some ice. So that theme of regeneration you can see throughout the entire pavilion.
Okay, thanks.
No worries.
Yep.
Alright, so shall I do sort of my usual spiel? Alright. So here we find ourselves under the waters of the St. Lawrence River. So this is one of our main rivers coming from the Atlantic Ocean on the east coast of Canada. And so of course this is brackish water. So this is a combination of salt water meeting with our fresh water. And then that water will go down and dump into the Great Lakes in Ontario and beyond. And so of course, brackish water is a meeting point where fish such as salmon go to reproduce, so it's a very important ecosystem for the wild salmon of Canada. And salmon, of course, being a very popular fish in Canada, it's also the most common omiyage, or as people leave the country, so smoked salmon, very, very popular in Canada, as well as maple syrup, of course. So as you move your tablet around, you'll see that there are salmon swimming about in the waters. Let's see if we can find another one. There's some up there. So we'll be traveling across Canada via these waterways. Given that we have so much water in Canada, it's a very potent theme of our nation. Alright, so in this room here, we have these ice objects, very similar to those ice dams I was talking about, or icebergs that you'll find off the coast of Canada. So here, let's come to this one here. And those with tablets, what you just have to do is move your tablet around, and you'll see images appear. And so you can move your tablet, you can get closer, and as you get closer, you'll hear some of the sounds. So here we have some of our East Coasters celebrating in the middle of the winter, sharing good times with their families. So very typical images of the East Coast of Canada. You'll see these small villages on the coastlines, and the East Coasters are a very fun people. They like to have parties, they like to celebrate even when there's not necessarily anything happening, it's just the middle of the winter, so a very nice place to be. And then in Japan, I know she's very popular, we have the Green Gables, where Akage no Anne, or Anne of Green Gables, lives. So she's very popular in Japan, and perhaps even more popular here than in Canada. So we had to make sure that we had a little piece of that Canadiana here for everyone to see. And so we actually have images beyond the constraints of the icebergs themselves. So here you have some hot air balloons. Now finally, for this iceberg in particular, and you'll find this throughout some of the other icebergs, we actually have animals hidden, so sort of a little Easter egg for especially the kids to find. They really get excited when they see this one in particular. So we have a turtle here. So essentially, this whole iceberg is a turtle, and it's based on our First Nations stories of turtle islands. In some of the tribes as well, they'll have stories of Canada itself. So this here represents French Canada, yes. So this is a festival taking place in Quebec City. It's the heart of French Canada, essentially. And here north a little bit. It's not cooperating. So here we have the north of Canada, so the Arctic areas, the tundra. And what you're seeing here are actually animals that have been carved from soapstone. So soapstone has been traditionally carved by our First Nations people for many, many generations. Because it's a softer stone, it also comes in a variety of colors. So very popular for this carving technique. And actually, if we take our walk around the front of the iceberg, you see here an Inuit woman. So the Inuit being the people of the north, the First Nations people of the north. She's carving a narwhal. So we're showing here the use of new technology to maintain old traditions. So here being traditional arts. So embracing sort of the new while maintaining the old. And then if we bring the tablet up once again, beyond the constraints, we have the aurora. So this is a big draw for people to the north. You'll see these in the dark night sky, basically in the north. You'll even find aurora sometimes farther down to the south, depending on, say, some of the solar flares that are taking place, these types of things. And so this iceberg in particular is also talking about a transition of technology from old transportation technology up to the airplane. So essentially, it's important to have good transportation in the north because it's so vast, and it's one of our least populated zones, but it is the largest zone as well. And then just back up a little bit. So as I back up, you'll see that it's all sitting on the back of the narwhal. So this is a narwhal. So this is a northern species of whale that you'll find. They have this long tusk. And so the First Nations people would hunt these whales and they would use all of the parts of the animals. And this is the same for any animal that you would find the First Nations people. So here we have Niagara Falls, and so this is very important for Canada's tourism. We're very fortunate in our country to have this natural wonder right on the border between Canada and the United States, so it draws many, many people. But it's not just about tourism. We actually produce a lot of hydroelectricity at Niagara Falls and beyond. Because we're very fortunate to have this abundance of fresh flowing water in Canada, we can actually produce hydroelectricity, which is a very clean, sustainable way to make electricity. And we produce enough that we could even export it to the United States. There's our beaver.
Wow.
So it was really important to have the beaver included here because, of course, the beaver is a symbol of Canada because we have many of them, but also at the beginning of the nation, we would actually hunt the beaver for their pelts, and that would be used in trade. So we had the fur trade, which was really what kickstarted exchange in Canada, essentially. The tablet actually is it's reading the shapes of the icebergs because it's in that programming. So it's sort of like
or like a QR code sort of.
Exactly what I was about to say. Think of them as a 3D QR code. So Robert Lepage, he basically took care of the imagery, what you're seeing, the layout. So world-renowned theater director amongst many, many other hats. JKFL then did sort of the programming and took that AR technology and they pushed it a little further. So they were able to map out these objects, place the images onto those objects within their programming. And then they also programmed that when you get closer, the sounds are stronger. So if you're in a specific zone, you'll hear maybe music in one area. If you're looking at a dog, you might hear the dog barking. So it's more advanced than the typical AR that we usually see. It's a little more technical than that, but in layman's terms. So here we have a modern day train carrying some goods across the country. So that would be the Trans-Canada Rail line that I was talking about, which unites the East Coast and the West Coast and allows us, especially back in the day before airplanes were available, it was allowing people to unite the country, to be able to see their family maybe on the other coast of the country, but also to transport our goods. And then there's that tree plant. This is actually current day. Yeah, and the opposite side road. So we can actually take that one if you want. So there's lots of things to discover. You really want to look all around the icebergs. But if you have time, we can actually go there. Oh, there's a lot of children though. And so this side here is a look into the past. So now we actually have a steam train, and there they're carrying the lumber. So one of the main exports from Canada at the beginning of our nation would be the steam train. then I talked a little bit about symbols of Canada. So not only do we have the lumber, which was one of our main exports, but actually, if we come over here, so here's our beaver. So it was really important to have the beaver included here because, of course, the beaver is a symbol of Canada because we have many of them, but also at the beginning of the nation, we would actually hunt the beaver for their pelts, and that would be used in trade. So we had the fur trade, which was really what kickstarted exchange in Canada, essentially. So it was very important to have her here. These days, pretty well left alone to build her dams. And then showing some of the more natural wonders. So there's the salmon that we saw at the beginning, but this time we have the Pacific salmon. And I was talking about the sounds that you hear as you get closer. You can hear the lumberjacks whistling. So it was important to show these guys as well, because it shows the industriousness of the people who established Canada. So there's a lot of trees in Canada, and they were able to cut down a great deal of lumber to get kind of Canada and the United States kick-started. So they were very, very industrious in that they were using only hand tools to be able to cut this many trees. Of course, now we have larger machines that can take care of that, but I think it's good to have a nod to the people of our past as well. All right, so our final room. So yes, we've traveled across Canada via our waterways, from underwater, across the country, and now we end in space. So what you'll want to do is start looking down at the stars and then bring your tablet up. So here we have some Canadian astronauts, and they're floating in the International Space Station, the ISS. They're looking down through the window of the ISS onto imagery of Canada. So this is actual GPS footage of Canada. So here we see some coastlines, sometimes some fish, some cities, and so it's about looking down at the ocean, but also it does talk about being on the International Space Station and Canada being on that world stage. Working with other nations to find advancements in technology, in medical, all of these great things. So really about collaboration as well. Now, the last thing I'll draw your attention to is the music. So we can actually hear what's called throat singing. And so throat singing is actually a First Nations art as well. And so especially with the Inuit people, they would use basically their chest, and so it's sort of humming and breathing sounds that they make into beautiful music, very haunting melodies.
メッセージの展示方法は、各国のパビリオンそれぞれの特徴が出ていました。その展示で、ベストエクシビジョンディスプレイ部門で金賞を受賞した北欧5カ国共同出展のパビリオンです。
こちらのパビリオンのテーマなんですけれども、コラボレーション、信頼、そして循環となっています。北欧の5カ国がそれぞれにですね、非常に大切にしている3つのテーマとなっています。はい、そうですね。循環と言いますと、例えば、環境、リサイクル、こういったものの循環もございますが、経済も循環しております。 こういったことでですね、幅広く循環がテーマになっております。こちらはですね、ノーディックの四季、それからですね、北欧の人々の生活という形になっております。実は春、夏、秋、冬のですね、映像が15分間のループでずっと巡りまして、こちらをですね、こちらのスペース、ノーディックゼンラーデンというんですけれども、北欧のデザインと日本の禅のお寺、石庭、枯山水、こちらのデザインのですね、コラボレーションということで、この石庭、枯山水のテーマである演奏という考え方、こちらとですね、コラボレーションになっておりまして、季節もですね、演奏の考え方と同じように巡ることで、全てが始まりもなく終わりもないというテーマにのっとっております。一枚一枚の紙の四角形がですね、形が違う、もしくはですね、サイズが違うのがお気づきいただけると思います。こちらはですね、実は北欧の一人一人個人を表しています。そこで多様性、こちらがフィーチャーされております。そして演奏の中にもですね、全てというのは実は一つ一つの個人からできていると。そして、個人というのは全てが存在しない限りは存在できるものではないと。全体は合ってないようなものであるというですね、メッセージが込められています。こちらもですね、非常にノーディックの皆さんの考え方と似ておりまして、全体が、調和が取れていないと個人も存在することができない。同時に個人が存在しない限り全体の社会も存在することができないという考え方にのっとっています。
ひんやりしますね。
夏はもうお気に入りの場所ですね。最初のエリアではっていう新幹線のような特急電車でして255キロ速出るんですね。とてもエコフレンドリーなモデリングとして使われております。
何がエコフレンドリーなんですか？
電力の全て電力で動いている、そんな状況になっております。そして電力供給に関しましては30年までに 54% を再生可能なエネルギーに変える、そんな計画になっております。日に日に増加しております。毎年100万人ずつ増えている、そんな統計が出ております。そしてそれに合わせて都市計画が進められています。そうなんですね。はい。毎年100万人ずつ増えているというふうにお願いします。で、それを押し止める、そんな緑化をする国際的なプロジェクトが進められている。教育のクラスターの分野が展示されています。こちらですが、ウズベキスタンの最後の都市であるサマルカンドの展示です。今、2750年の歴史を持つ町なんですが、そのランドマークであるビビハニムモスクというモスクの修復プロジェクトです。14世紀にご覧いただけるようになっております。一番有名なのがこの、周細工のスザニという細工です。こちら最後のショップにもサンプルがございますので、もしよろしければご覧くださいませ。世界の主だった博物館や美術館、例えばパリのルーブルですとか、あとベニスのビエンナーレ、そうした博物館とのコラボレーション展示が世界的に展開されています。ウズベキスタンからさまざまな国へというイメージです。
Annelerimiz halkımızın azıklandığı ve kirlilikle yedekleydi.
NFC になっておりまして、タッチするとそれぞれの木の産地の情報がご覧いただけるようになっております。これは紀州ですね。はい、全部で9つの県の、集められた杉の木となっております。先ほどご説明させていただいた、持って帰るための工夫なんですが、こちらに一本一本木がありまして、見てみるとこうした割れ目が入っております。これは背割りという技術を使っておりまして、日本の気候が湿気が多い、湿度が多いのに対し、持って帰るウズベキスタンは非常に乾燥しているので、そういう変化を経験すると、こういう年輪がある木というのはパカッと割れてしまう危険性があるわけですね。なのでそれを防ぐためにあえてこういう割れ目を入れておくことでそれを防ぐという工夫がされているわけです。はい。サマルカンドブルーというもう少し青みがかかった色なんですが、これはブハの色、もう少し緑がかかったそれぞれの町にそれぞれのカラーがあるんですが、万博のためにこのタイルを1万1000枚ほどその職員さんが作って持ってきてくださいました。
今度も、いや、今度はあかんかもしれへん。おい、みんな歌えるか？君が歌ってくれへんか？頼む、青。あれは命の歌や。命を集め、喜び合い、力を与える。頼む。
島の歌、分かった。やってみる。
星が消えたら青は俺のこと忘れる。お別れや。
なんで？
そういう決まりなんや。困ったら歌を歌うんや。さっきみたいに。歌は命を集め、喜び合い、力をくれる。
分かった。
この星は強い。青、頼んだで。じゃあな。またな。
バイバイ。
そうか扇風機
ね。